Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are.
It's
This is
most definitely the evening. Although only 9 p.m. right now, but I suspect most people listening to a podcast it would be the evening.
maybe, yeah, probably. I don't know. Well,
Okay, a gaming related podcast. Put it that way. Other people who listen to other podcasts are driving to work, not playing games. That's why.
okay, fair enough. Anyway, we don't have a name for this podcast. We didn't think of that before we started this, did we? Uh,
Well, I mean that's part of the fun of the podcast is coming up with a name. I mean, last time it was some great synergy. 20 minutes of cheese. Go check it out. It was a good podcast
the
for
amazing
both
infinite.
episodes. 20 minutes? You kidding me?
Okay,
Two
20 minutes
episodes,
for
but
2 episodes,
yeah.
and, both of them were just you and Eric playing Dota.
And we had a special guest playing Dota with us. It was good. It was good times.
Otska, who didn't even
Mm.
know he was being recorded,
Yeah.
which I'm pretty
As
sure is illegal
they
in some
say,
countries. But
great, great synergy. That's all I can say. So
mhm.
anyway, this is whatever this is, as every podcast starts out as, and I assume it's gaming related, but I guess we could branch into other media if Mushfik knows about other media, is aware of it in any sense.
I know all of the medias.
hmm Yeah, he's quite the media tycoon in a very non-descriptive sense.
Okay.
So, I assume this goes for 20 minutes, which means that I guess we should get into the topic reasonably quickly.
All right. I mean, it doesn't need to have a set time. We can go for however long we want to until the podcast is over.
Okay, well, look at it this way. First recording program we used only recorded for 20 minutes. That's why it was 20 minutes.
This
So,
is
I guess,
unlimited, I'm pretty sure.
yeah, good old free software. Go get it. Support free software, everyone, so that it doesn't have to have such limitations. All right, so I guess we can talk about other things to start off with. What have you been playing over the last week? I guess of also known
Well,
as the first week back of uni.
in the last week, I actually haven't played anything. Um,
Exactly.
yeah,
What
I haven't
avid
had the
gamers we
time.
are.
Just haven't had the time. Um, but in recent times, the main games I have been playing are Guild Wars 2, Battlefield 4, and Witcher 2. I also played a bit of the Titanfall beta, which was really, really good, surprisingly. I mean, I just got the beta and thought, it just might be alright. But it was surprisingly really good, and I pre ordered it immediately. Definitely a game to check out, I think. I'm
Yeah.
really excited for it.
By check out, we mean immediately go and pre-order at. I don't even know where you can pre-order. Is it on? It's not on Origin, isn't it?
It's on Origin, unfortunately, but I've
There we
grown.
go. Excellent. That a
I've grown to
fantastic gaming
accept it.
platform known as Origin.
I've grown to
Yeah, well,
accept it.
most people. Yeah. Well, I didn't get into the Titanfall beta because I didn't even bother signing up for it. So the only thing I've been playing at all in any capacity is Skyrim because that game basically never gets old thanks to the fantastic modding community. And that ends. I don't know. Bethesda RPGs have certain lifespan to them. I'm sure anyone who's played them is aware of this. So yeah, even after what's it been like 5 years since that game came out, you can still get playability out of it. That doesn't mean I'm going to be playing ESO though, but that's a topic for a different day.
Yeah, indeed. I've got some comments to make about that game, positive and negative, but as Tom said, for another day.
Mm. I guess we should also mention DayZ, just because there's a new update apparently coming out, which seems sort of good, but it's not the update that everyone wants, i.e., vehicles. It's the we might invent cooking now, which I'm not so sure about. Like, if it means that you can go and hunt wild animals, and indeed that there are wild animals to hunt, then that would be great, because then finding food isn't as annoying as it currently is. But if it means that instead of just coming across food and instantly be able to eat it, you now have to like build a campfire and get shot up by people. And I imagine it'd be quite irritating to deal with. I
And
mean, the
also,
whole
the whole limited
screwdriver
amounts of
thing.
food.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
that badly damaged apple killing you.
It didn't kill me, but it did make the whole screen go grey, which wasn't exactly pleasant. But there you go. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah.
It's a very like exclusive feeling you get when you already own a game, especially when it's like pre-alpha as DayZ standalone is, and then it gets an update for free, and you're just like, yeah, I was there. I'm with the game as it were.
Yeah.
Like when Terraria gets an update and everyone goes mad for that. Like it's not like you've paid for DLC; it's just an update of the game. It's quite an amazing feeling.
Mm, for sure. I mean, yeah, I really enjoyed that time we played the bit of the Daisy Alpha. I mean, we played it for like I think it was 10 hours or so before we ended up, getting
Yeah,
bored because it was
tennis.
kind of the same thing. We needed some new content, but obviously alpha is alpha. We had to wait for the next major patch whenever that was, which as we now know, as Tom just stated, is pretty soon. But yeah, a lot of
Rumored
cool
to be.
cool features in that game. A lot actually. Even for just an alpha. I mean, a lot of people are calling it a walking simulator, which it kind of is. Like, I'm not going to deny that. It's definitely a walking simulator, but
Oh, by the way, apparently there is an auto run function, which we just didn't figure out when we were playing somehow.
oh, we're stupid.
Yeah,
So bad.
they were talking about it on the Polaris podcast. Apparently, someone they were playing with just like he was playing it on the PC, and then he went down and sat down by the TV to watch it, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm still playing. My guy's just on auto run." Like it was literally the straight road down south to Electro. Like he just left it on auto run up there.
I
Admittedly, on
wish we knew.
a low population server. Otherwise, you would not attempt that shit any other time. But you know.
Mm. But yeah, the
Yep.
survival aspect of that game is
So
good, but I still think there's a lot of things that game needs to change. Like, 1 meter jumps breaking your legs. That's really annoying. Um,
yeah, I agree
I don't,
completely.
I don't know
Like
why it's such a small jump breaks your legs. Like, it's so weird.
considering that they want a realistic-ish survival aspect game, they've got to work on realism. Like for the longest time, it was hilarious that people actually looked for justification using the server switch bug to get yourself instantly repaired legs, and the biggest response to that was, well, as I can break my legs after like literally falling for half a second, then it's realistic, just as realistic that is, to change server and immediately repair my legs. So why should I bother with their system? But of course, they fixed that bug without fixing the physics in the game. So it's actually quite an issue right now. The other issue being, if you want to splint, you have to find a specific object known as pile of wood. That's ridiculously rare considering the number of trees in
Yeah.
the game. So they need to fix that
Jesus
one as well.
Christ, pile of wood. I'm pretty sure I only saw it once in our entire 10 hours of game time.
I'm very sure as well. And I didn't
I was
pick it up
getting
because
really
it was wood, and
frustrated,
I didn't have a backpack.
getting really frustrated going up to those trees with my axe, saying, why can't I cut this down?
Yeah.
Ugh.
But at the same time, I don't think that's going to be a feature particularly soon. They don't want to turn it into Rust or Minecraft, and for good reason. So they have to consider that one as well. I think just making splints a bit more readily available to people, because morphine is really hard to find. So that would be good. I mean, at the moment, it seems to be if you get broken legs, you just like hope for another player to come along so you can ask him to kill you, which isn't exactly the whole survival aspect, as it were.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure we had we had some strange moments. Like, where was that place? I can't remember the name of the place, but some guy walked up to Tom, gifted Tom with a weapon, which was
It was a shovel of all
a
things.
shovel.
It, but
Yes, and then
yeah.
got down on his knees and asked Tom to brutally murder him. Why?
Hmm.
I don't know, but Tom complied, being the guy he is, the
Of
moral
course you
versus
can play.
soul.
I mean, come on. It is a kindness in Daisy. Like the number of stories you can read on various websites about people just asking to get shot in the head because they're bored or because they're sick and or they've got broken legs, and there's literally no way of doing anything aside from that unless I don't know you find like insecticide and drink it yourself.
Yeah, I think a lot of fun that will come from a game like Daisy and already has to some extent for us, just the stories and like the things that happen. Like it doesn't happen in many other games. I mean, you've got like
Absolutely.
your typical Daisy moments, and that's something that really makes the game for me.
Yeah, with regards to emergent gameplay, especially in a like pseudo RPG setting, as Daisy is pseudo RPG, the only other game like it would be Eve Online, like a entirely hands-off approach to player interaction that revolves around these stories emerging out of player interaction, as opposed to being scripted like battles and such, which a lot of actual MMOs are pretty guilty
Mm,
of. Whereas Daisy, it's not an MMO, but at the same time, it's an RPG enough that you've got enough invested in your character that when you have a conversation with someone over the microphone, you want it to go well, and that desire for it to go well just shapes so many of these like crucial moments that you find, and I really like that a lot. However, yeah, there isn't enough of an incentive to not die if you break your legs or like get sick because it's just a pain in the ass to deal with. And there also isn't enough of an incentive for like you to not fight your way out of like a bunch of people pointing guns at you, unless you like really role play it as a survivor. You don't want to die at that point, but I'm sure most players would just start trying to punch them because they can, and that person has to react quickly enough to it.
yeah, absolutely. But so yeah, that's our experience with Daisy so far. What else have we got on the list?
Of things that we've played recently, believe me, I think that's about it. Unless I count my replay of Bioshock with co-pilots, but I don't really count that because I've played the game quite a bit, so it's not exactly a new experience. Plus, I don't think people want to hear about original Bioshock particularly. Unless I don't know. Coming
Okay.
back to it after playing Infinite, it's very interesting because I at the time playing Infinite, it had been a good Christ, how long? Like 5 years since I played Bioshock One, and I thought it had been dumbed down quite a bit for the sake of the story and the sake of the visuals. But then it's only after you go back to Bioshock do you realize just how much easier Infinite actually really is, especially considering the abuse of certain weapons in Infinite. Like I played Infinite on the hardest difficulty, and by the end I just couldn't die because the sniper rifle was OP as shit.
Yeah,
Whereas
the
you play
sniper rifle in
Bioshock
that game
One,
is amazing. I honestly
yeah,
use the sniper rifle for most of the game. Like, there's
absolutely.
almost no reason not to. If you're a decent enough shot, and even then, even if you're not that good at firing it,
The
it's
enemies stand
still,
still.
yeah, it's
It's
still just a bit too rewarding in that game to use the sniper rifle. It's insane.
yeah, it's insanely high
And not just
damage.
the sniper rifle. While the
Sh-
sniper
If,
rifle is OP in its own right, all the weapons are pretty damn good. The game doesn't really feel too challenging at any point. I played it on the second hardest difficulty, I think, or maybe it was the hard. I can't remember, but it was definitely one
there
of
are
the
only
higher up
three, so you
difficulties.
would have played it on hardest.
Okay, I would have played it on hardest then.
If it,
But
if
yeah,
I remember correctly, yeah.
I played that game like continuously after release. I got it pre-ordered, it got it immediately, played it for like I don't know, 2 days straight basically. But yeah, Bioshock One definitely, kind of
Yeah, everything about that.
holds too dear
Like,
to me. It was I still just feel it was a better game. But no, I'm not saying Bioshock Infinite was bad. Like it was a great game. It was brilliant. Well worth every penny.
absolutely.
And definitely
I
lives up
think
to
on
its
that,
predecessor. It lives up to it for sure. Not as
yeah.
good as it, but it does live up to it.
I think on that, it's they're very different experiences, and Errant Signal actually did a great example of this, where he showed the progression of System Shock 1, System Shock 2, Bioshock 1, and Bioshock Infinite as being a transgression of from RPG to shooter, and they were always RPG shooters, but System Shock 1 was a lot more of an RPG than it was a shooter. And so Infinite, you've got this full transition into a actual just shooter, and you can, with that in mind, it becomes a lot more about the story and a lot more about the art and a lot more about the atmosphere than arguably Bioshock 1 ever was. Now, Bioshock 1's story and atmosphere are like dead on, amazing. And honestly, Infinite doesn't quite recreate them in the same way because the freedom that the player had in Bioshock One to do not whatever they wanted, but do a great deal number of things during pivotal story moments. Whereas Infinite, it takes your control away a little bit, and as a result, there's only really one thing you can do. But that sort of fits into the theme of the story. And the story of Infinite was, I think, objectively speaking, better than Bioshock One. I mean, the plot twist in Bioshock One was just amazing, like both of them. But the actual story of Infinite just had a great deal more depth, I found. So it sort of made up for its lack of challenge and its lack of RPG elements that Bioshock One had, such as hacking, different ammo types, having to use health packs, all that sort of stuff. Because at the end of the day, in Bioshock Infinite, you have infinite ammo and you have infinite health if you hit the F key correctly, i.e., when you're handed stuff by Elizabeth. So, it's like, do you like oppose the game on that basis, or do you just go along for the ride? And I decided right away that I would just go along for the ride and enjoy it a lot, and that's exactly what I did. So yeah, it's not exactly
Yeah,
bad for that fact.
I feel the
However,
same
going
way.
back to Bioshock One, yeah, going back to Bioshock One after that, yeah, you do appreciate the challenge of that game a lot more, and the degree of customization that has to go into your character, like the way that you want to play, like you can legitimately just go the wrench build and you only use the wrench as the weapon and get all of the tonics required to make that do more damage, and it's really satisfying. You can go for the pistol build and all that sort of stuff, but at the end of the day, splices don't go down to a single shot most of the time, and that's quite an issue. Whereas Infinite, the sniper rifle will one shot nearly every enemy in the game, so it's a little bit different on that sense. So I have enjoyed playing it again for the first time in a long time, so
Yeah.
can't really complain
Um,
about that. But yeah, that's literally it for all the games I've played.
mm. Recently, I actually played Starbound. I got that, and I've been playing that with Jolly. I'd like to talk a fair bit about it, but at the same time, I'd have also liked Jolly to be, with us podcasting. Um,
Yeah, and I'm not sure
I
how
might.
qualified you are as someone who's put what 2 hours into Terraria.
I put more than that. I put
No,
almost 15 into Terraria. Come on. I
no
mean, I know that's
offense.
nothing compared to your 200 or something, but I
It's
still
only
have
100,
understand how the
140.
game works.
Yeah, I know, but it's only until you get to the end game I think you can compare Terraria to Starbound. It's
Yep. Okay,
if
fair
the
enough. But that's
fantastic end
why.
game.
That's what I was gonna say. I was gonna leave that till Jolly gets if
Well,
Jolly does this with us in another episode or something, um, then
I've also got to put.
he can give his experiences on it as someone who's played both games, and I can give my experience on it playing Starbound a significantly amount more than Terraria in a shorter amount of time. I don't know. Starbound seemed to connect with me a bit more than Terraria did. I loved the game a lot, and I can't wait till the weekend until I can actually play it if Jolly's not working, because uni is getting
Yeah,
in the way of the important
yeah.
things. But anyway,
Yeah, for me, I've got to play some Starbound. Like I've really not played it, so I've got to compare it to Terraria. Like Terraria's hard mode is just amazing now, so we shall see.
one thing I'd like to talk about though, um, about the recent expansion pack, and I say expansion pack in quotation marks for Battlefield 4, which was the
Yeah.
God, I don't
Yes.
even not after China, the one after China Rising. Uh, what's it called? Hang on, I'm gonna quickly get it up
Yeah.
right now. Second Assault, that one. Yep. Okay, I'm a huge fan of the Battlefield franchise, like massive. I have every single one of their games till now, like all of them since Battlefield 1942, and I really like Battlefield 4. I think it's a significant improvement over Battlefield 3. I really, really like the overall design of the game, like the UI, not just the gunplay. Even the gunplay feels a lot better in Battlefield. I don't know why, but there's just something about Battlefield 4 that makes it feel significantly better than Battlefield 3. And I know there were a lot of problems with that at launch for people, Personally, I didn't have any of those problems. The only problems I had were in the beta. When I had the game on launch, I had no problems with it whatsoever. The game's always been perfectly fine running for me. However, Second Assault, I had my doubts about the expansion pack when it was announced as well. Um, I mean, obviously you don't have to get it. It's an expansion. It's optional. But the premium members are forced to get it. But even then, premium cost $60, and each expansion pack separately costs 20. So technically, if you bought all 5 expansions, you'd be paying $100. And if you get premium, you basically get 2 expansions for free. So you can look at it that way in the sense that Second Assault is more or less a free thing that comes with, for premium players, and people who don't want premium don't have to buy it. I mean, you can think of it that way if you want, but that still doesn't change the content of it. Basically, they've just taken maps from Battlefield 3 and, obviously, Battlefield
You
2, since technically, the freaking Sandstorm map, I forgot its name, Gulf of Oman, um, is basically a Battlefield 2 map. But essentially, what this is they've just remade it in the new engine, as everyone knows, but I feel that the changes to the maps that they've made aren't really warranting a $20 price tag. Really, I feel like those kind of maps are something that should have been done maybe for free. They should have just come with the vanilla game. Or maybe they should have just come for players who, say, for example, already had Battlefield 3 Premium as like a bonus for Battlefield 4 members who have continued on from the previous franchise. I don't know. But either way, I feel that Gulf of Oman, all it does is add a sandstorm, which kind of makes it a little bit more difficult to shoot. Yeah, not really. It's more like a pretty thing. I think the Caspian board, the new one, is amazing. The new Caspian board is wicked. I think it's even way better than the previous Caspian border map. With the whole new underwater. There's like a little underwater passageway and like all these cool new places that you can go through to get from one point to another without having to, expose yourself over high ground as infantry, which was really annoying in Caspian border. Getting to that point D at the center,
Yep.
the hilltop, it was almost impossible as infantry. Like you had to get
Maybe
really
it's
lucky
all.
to not get spotted and just gunned down while running up that hill or, trying to go around the back. And this new entryway, while still it could be a bit dodgy, it does make it a lot easier, I think. But yeah, the other maps they added to it, what were they? I don't even remember because those are the two that I loved them. Well, I didn't love the most, but played the most on. Um, oh yeah, there was Operation Firestorm, which isn't really changed much. All they've really done is make games slightly darker, I think. I don't know. The maps seems to have a more sinister feel, which I think is a lot better. I went back and played Battlefield 3 because Tom doesn't have Battlefield 4 yet, so I played a Firestorm with him in Battlefield 3, and um, really just Battlefield 3. It really did feel like quite a bit of a downgrade to Battlefield 4. Like, I didn't really expect it until I actually went back and played Battlefield 3, but the difference between the two games I found personally pretty significant. I don't know. But anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about Battlefield 4, the new quote unquote expansion pack. I mean, for
Yeah.
me, the biggest things that come in expansion packs are the maps. And if the maps are literally just maps we've been on before but with slightly new effects, it annoys me a little bit. I have to say that. Even as a huge Battlefield fan, like I'm being completely honest, it did annoy me a bit, but it's not the worst thing in the world.
The way I see it is, all the expansions in Battlefield 3 added something pretty dynamic. I arguably their version of dynamic is a bit wishy-washy here, but ultimately, if you think about Battlefield 3 expansions, apart from Back to Karkan, because that is essentially what Second Assault of Battlefield 4 is. That is to say, re-skinning old maps, right? When you get down to it. Um, However, Close Quarters was entirely, close quarters focused. It turned it into something that a lot more COD and CS fans would like, that sort of thing. It's not like vehicle combat, which is, not the point of Battlefield, but obviously giving players that option is always welcome. I felt that Armored Kill also gave people the option just in the other direction. It's all about vehicles and such. Um, was there one that came out before Endgame? Or am I thinking of something else?
Um, Aftermath?
Uh, Aftermath. Is Aftermath an Endgame or is it both?
I can't
They're
remember
pretty
the order.
similar. Those things are pretty similar actually. So they don't really get a free pass on that one, but they did add a lot more, as people like to say, verticality to the levels, especially Aftermath. I seem to remember like you could run underneath the streets and stuff, which is a lot of why a lot of maps in Battlefield 4 get praised as well. The whole running under the streets or above the vehicles and such, give you a lot more options to deal with them as infantry, which is again the whole point of Caspian Border reimagined, as DICE put it in their website. So I feel that those maps and those expansions for Battlefield 3 added a lot more depth and a bit more of a streamlined experience to various Battlefield players, the ones who really badly wanted like a specific experience, such as like vehicle combat or infantry only combat. Whereas like if you consider, I guess when the Battlefield 3 beta was on and the first map they had, the only one they had for a long time was Operation Metro, and people were very upset about this because it didn't give them an option. And then when the actual game got released and they had those options, they were happy, and then the expansions came along, they were even happier. Battlefield 4, on the other hand, it's given people more of the same in a lot of ways. I guess they felt that the maps that they got in the like original Battlefield 4, or indeed in China Rising as well, especially, they felt were good enough to warrant the essential like equivalent of Back to Karkand, but with adding like levolution as those levolution things, and like that's enough to warrant it. So it's not like they don't have precedent for this, but at the same time, neither of the expansions have added new gameplay elements, or at least a streamlined gameplay experience with each one. Like, I'm not saying that players would necessarily enjoy this, and it's probably DICE's intention to have said gameplay like elements in one map, but make that for every single map. So no matter what map you're playing on, you'll have a good time with it. But I don't believe that that's how a lot of, especially PC FPS shooter players, like react to these sort of things. They would want that streamlined experience. They want to pick the servers that go on the maps that they want the most. They don't want all map servers, especially considering that this is an expansion. You do have to pay for it, and if you want to play with other people on these expansions, then and like say your favorite server is only going to host those maps, or indeed host any of those maps, suddenly you get kicked out of the game and you have to find a new server. And it's probably not a big deal to people with decent internet connections, or indeed can play in servers in different countries. But at least when in Australia, you're pretty much screwed if all the Australian servers start putting in new expansion map rotations. So you have to buy it. Except the only thing you're buying this time in this expansion is the option to play on all the servers you want to, in addition to a bunch of basically Battlefield 3 maps with slight levolution ideas. So while it's like reasonable from the sense that they have a precedent for this in terms of B2K, I also feel that they're not really offering the same things that they offered with each iteration of the Battlefield 3 expansions.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that point. However, I'm really looking forward to the Naval Strike expansion. I don't know if you've heard of it yet or not, but as someone who also played Battlefield 2142, I really, really like the Titan mode. That was probably the best thing to do in that game after Conquest, or maybe it was even better than Conquest. It was like Conquest, but better in my opinion. Um, but yeah, they're adding a reimagined version of the Titan mode to Battlefield 4, where instead of having Titans, you have battleships, naval battleships, which you can get inside, and you have to sort of take control of them, and or well, it wasn't really take control of them in 2142. It was destroy them from the inside out, and then it was this really awesome end bit where as it's blowing up, you just have to jump off the Titan and try and survive, and then there'd be like this awesome cutscene. Not even cutscene, it was like still in game where the Titan would blow up behind you and the game would end. And they're doing the same thing now, except with Battlefield 4, and I'm really, really looking forward to that. I think that's awesome. They're also adding naval combat, adding a few new cool things that you can do in the water, I suppose. Um, New water vehicles. So yeah, that'll be pretty sick. I'm really looking forward towards that expansion. It definitely looks like it's going to be a lot better than uh what's the name of this one again? Back to
Second
character.
Assault,
Second
but it is
Assault,
back.
yeah. I'm
It is
tired.
basically back to character. Yeah. I don't know if you ever played. This is in the Xbox era. Star Wars Battlefront and indeed Battlefront 2, the sequel.
Yep,
But
I
in
have.
Battlefront 2, yeah, they added space battles, and that's exactly what this seems like. You land in your enemy's ship, and you go and sabotage it by throwing thermal detonators on the life support and the reactor and such. It seems like it's going to be a lot like this, and I'm pretty sure most people will be excited about this. I mean, for one thing, at least if my flight skills are anything to go by, just getting to your enemy's ship is going to be quite the challenge. So, like, this could be quite amazing, and
Yeah.
I think it also adds an element to Battlefield which I like an awful lot about the series, which is it's not about. I mean, obviously, competitive shooters have their place, but it's not about KD. And as much as Mushfik would disagree with me here, you can have a shit KD and still help the team. You can even clown around a little bit in vehicles and still be helping the team in some capacity. And I think this enables that a little bit more. The idea of just take all the jets you can possibly ram them into your enemy ship, and hopefully one of you idiots will jump out quickly enough to go and sabotage it. And I can see that as being quite just fun, like straight up fun, not as hardcore as some of the people who play exclusively Operation Metro with their choke point LMG nonsense and grenade spam would have you believe, but like genuinely challenging, enjoyable sort of gameplay. So I think it could be like quite an amazing addition.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to it. Um, but yeah, I think that's enough of Battlefield for now. How we get on to our main topic?
The main topic after half an
Top.
hour,
We'll
yes.
call it topic of the week. Topic of
All
the
right,
past. I don't know. We still haven't even got a name for the podcast.
yeah, it's also true. So yeah, when did it come out? Like a month ago now? 2 weeks ago? Yeah.
It's
The
only
the
it's been less than a week, maybe. Oh no, it's definitely been more than a week. Maybe just a week and a half to 2 weeks.
Yeah. So yeah, the only game to come out in this period because this is the drought, the spring drought, as it were, of games. So the big one that everyone's been anticipating is of course Thief, which is a as much of a reimagining as a reboot of the series because it's not a reboot in the technical sense. A reboot is when you completely do away with the previous story, but this is actually a sequel to the original Thief series, so they have the story behind it. But at the same time, they have changed enough of the game from 1998
Yeah.
to make it into a different game. Yeah. Uh, so the topic, of course, is reboots in general, and I know, Mushfik, you can start. What do you think about reboots? Do you enjoy the idea of them, or do you think that they're just cashing in on an existing nostalgia trip that other people will be happy with by supporting their franchises that are part of their childhood?
Okay. Um, I think the best way to describe my feeling on this would be to use a term called situational. It really depends on the reboot, in my opinion.
Fair enough. Fair
I
enough.
don't have a solid opinion on them. I don't mind them. It really depends on how it was done, and okay. Let me give you an example. All right, Duke Nukem. I'm sure you're familiar with it. And then Duke Nukem Forever. Um,
Yeah,
hang on,
that's
give
pretty
me one
infamous.
second. Yep. All right, Duke Nukem and Duke Nukem Forever. What an interesting series. I played the first Duke Nukem. I was really, really young, and I don't even remember it. I just know that I had a ton of fun. That's all that I remember. And then there was Duke Nukem Forever, which I didn't have a ton of fun. Is all I can say.
Mm.
Um, Now, if we look at a different example, Tomb Raider, this game was done significantly better. I did play original. I played a Tomb Raider game on PS1. I can't remember the name of it, but that was the first Tomb Raider game I played on PS1, and I really enjoyed that. It was a really good game. Since then, I didn't really play any of the other Tomb Raider games. I don't know, it wasn't really the series that I was too interested in growing up. And then along came the new Tomb Raider reboot, and it's amazing. Like, that's all I can say. I played that game over, I think, 3 days straight and finished it, and it was amazing. Everything from the graphics to the voice acting, the gameplay. I mean, there wasn't anything in that game I could even pick out that I disliked. Like, and that's really rare. Usually I would have at least one problem with the game. That game was almost perfect. Like, I enjoyed every minute of it. There was nothing I didn't like. I really liked some of the suspense, like, the darker parts of the game was, a bit scary, and then, the sort of supernatural horror element that they added, like, with the those cannibals and, like, the blood river and all that. Like, generally, when it comes to horror games, I hate them, but what I do like are adventure games that have elements of horror and they implement it well. They don't put stupid things like jump scares. That's why I was such a fan of Bioshock 1, and that's why I really like Tomb Raider. While they're not horror games per se, they do have
Uh,
those sort of scary elements to them which sort of add to the atmosphere. I
this is
think
where
atmospheric is the word I was
I
looking.
interject. This is where I interject that Bioshock 1 is pretty guilty of jump scares. Like, it had a few that didn't
Okay,
need
I'm
to be
pretty sure
there.
there was. I can remember one. That's it. I can only
But
remember one jump scare.
but I agree with the idea that it's highly atmospheric. So yeah, same applies to Tomb Raider. It is very much a game soul in its atmosphere. It's a lot less than the original was, and indeed the technology behind the reboot is significantly better. So they could actually make it about the atmosphere, not just about the jumping mechanics. So yeah, I agree with that one. Yeah, I think this is rule of enjoyment and rule of like objective decency, rule of cool. If you go on TV tropes, the idea that like in theory, and without being too harsh on them, in theory, the idea of reboots is ridiculous. They are cash-ins of other people's like memories, so to speak. Because if you're making them for a new audience, then the new audience isn't going to know about the original, so you might as well make new games. If you're making them for the audience who already remembers, you are cashing in on their anticipation for something that they fondly remember, which is a pretty cynical way of developing games and developing stories. But at the same time, if they're good enough, then I guess you can just give them a pass on that one, especially when the game themselves was highly limited by technology and the story premise was good enough that it was definitely worth like revisiting with new technology.
Yeah, but yeah, that's exactly why I said before, situational. I mean, it really depends on how they do it. Like, honestly, I don't care how the company makes money as long as they do it in a way that is fair and is fun. Like, as long as they make a game that's good, I don't care. You can have my money. I'll throw it at you if it's a good game. So, now onto the topic of Thief. I haven't played any of the original Thief games. I don't really know much about them other than the fact that they were really good stealth games for their time and basically defined the stealth genre, as Total
Yeah.
Biscuit would say. Um, I also haven't played the newer Thief, but I did watch Total Biscuit's WTF of Thief. Um, and I thought it looked pretty good. It looked like a kind of game I'd enjoy. I generally like stealth games. I mean, um, I think that there was just something about the game that I can't put my finger on, but there was just something about it that didn't make the game seem worth buying straight away. It's the kind of game where I think I'll wait for it to go on sale rather than buy it immediately. Um, I don't know. I couldn't put my finger on it. It seems like a slightly more hardcore experience. Unlike, Dishonored, I'm a huge fan of. You could,
Yeah.
go down two paths. You could be either like an assassin or you could be like a ghost, just a really sneaky thief. Thief seems to be a very, very hardcore stealth experience where you're not really encouraged to kill enemies. You're encouraged to stay undetected and, be a thief, not an assassin. I think that's really cool. But again, I don't know, the way they implemented, it seems a bit strange, and I don't know. I can't really put my finger on it. Maybe it's the AI in the game, but there's something about that game that's holding me from buying it. Um, I was looking up some reviews of the game and stuff, and they're relatively mixed, but there seems to be a general sort of trend going towards the negative. I'm not really a person who likes scores. I never like judge a game based on a score. I like to read the reviews first. But I have to say that Metacritic, I think, gave it a 68 or something like that. I mean, the game doesn't look like a 68 from what I've seen playing it, and that's another reason again why I disagree with scores like that. I like to read the reviews. Um, but what was funny was that the user scores were also really low. The user scores were lower than the Metacritic score. I think they were like 5 out of 10 or something, or 50 out of 100, um, which to me is sometimes a lot more accurate than review scores. But then again, I like to watch the gameplay for myself. I like to have a read, and it seems like a game I would like as a newcomer to the Thief series, but again, I don't think it's something I'd like to just immediately spend my money on. What do you reckon, Tom?
Um, I think the reason it's had a pretty negative reception is because it actually, like, in a weird way, it has recreated the vibe you get from the original games to the point that it now feels dated because it's got that sort of I guess you could say hollowness to the feel of it. The sort of like lack of definitely not atmosphere because it is very atmospheric of a game. The lack of like substance to the actual AI that you're tracking and making sure don't see you and stuff. That they are very much just polygons and just ways of you failing a mission as opposed to living, breathing people. And the original Thief was praised for having this because back then in 1998, the idea of two NPCs just having a casual conversation while you like sneak past them or indeed move in to knock them out was pretty revolutionary. But now it's been in a lot of games, even games that isn't even the focus of, like Skyrim. It's in all of them, and people expect it to the point now that they expect more than just a few lines of dialogue before you go into for the kill. Except in the case of Thief, they've done a lot more than that. But I think just people expect just at the next level. They also expect more of a living, breathing world to go around in. From what I can tell, every house you go into is just deserted. Now that is part of the theme of the game. That it's like, they've got diseases, they've got a war going on between the chaos and the order, I believe it is. So people are going to leave their houses. That's the idea of it. But you're a thief, which means you're interacting with uh, regular life, which is goods have a value on them. Otherwise, you can't just pilfer them and sell them for money instantly as you do in the game, just like you do in Dishonored. So at the same time, like, although it makes sense thematically for you to be doing that, it doesn't make any actual sense in the like overall scheme of things. As a thief, you have to sneak into people's houses, past guards, but also past the people themselves. And maybe those people themselves have like letters and personal effects and things that tell you the story about them. And the reason Dishonored was so praised, along with games like Fallout 3 and Skyrim, is because every time you go to loot something valuable from someone, you can read all about their story, and that just adds so much to the game world. You don't even need an NPC sleeping in the bed of the house you're raiding if they leave a note on said bed saying we're fleeing to here because of this, and I hope we'll be okay. It just adds an awful lot of like substance to the game, which I think Thief, the reboot, is a little bit lacking from what I can tell. Again, I haven't played it, so I'm not entirely sure, but like it is a little bit too basic on that, a little bit too, I guess you could say, lacking in oxygen. And as a result, it's a little bit dated, but in essence, they have recreated the Thief experience. So I guess people can't really like deny that one too much. From a gameplay perspective, on the other hand, not a world building one, their decision to take away the sword was a really interesting one because the idea of Thief is that you're a thief, so you don't kill people, you sneak around a lot. And unlike Dishonored, there is no, like, literally no story reward of any kind for being a predator. Like, you get a score in the new game, which you didn't get in the originals, of course, being from 1998. So that's an interesting twist on it, because it does seem to really, really punish you for going for combat. Like, on a hard enough difficulty level, which is anything above easy, guards will overwhelm you very quickly. But at the same time, it's very like easy to just walk up to them and knock them out on the back of the head. And the AI seems a little bit slow on the easy difficulties. So the idea of like sneaking away after doing that and then knocking the next guy out, if you're playing like Arkham Asylum or something, so that seems a bit of an odd choice. To make your combat more centric does make sense, but then to make it less actually like deadly, i.e., having a sword versus the what's it called, blackjack. Is it called the blackjack? Whatever, the thing used to knock
Yeah,
people
it's a
out.
blackjack. It's a blackjack.
Yeah. So I think it's a bit strange that they would take away the sword because it added a lot to the game. The idea, if you were spotted, you could do something, but in the time that it took you to sword fight this guard who's in theory better at sword fighting than you are as a thief, other guards will arrive, and that's bad. Finally, I want to mention the stealth mechanics because it's a stealth game, so it's all about stealth mechanics. And Thieves' stealth mechanics are extremely unique for what they are. I mean, obviously they help define the thief genre, but the stealth genre. So they're not unique now, but they're very unique at the time. And if you compare them to other stealth games like arguably Metal Gear Solid, although that's becoming less and less of a stealth game, more of an action game, and other stealth games like, which I can't think of now, of course, other games with stealth elements in them, like Splinter Cell, it's entirely line of sight based. Like, it is all down to, are you being looked at by a guard? You can make as much noise as you like, although arguably in MGS you can't run on metal floors, but without that one element, Thief is entirely a pretty complex algorithm relating to light level, how quickly you're moving, how much you're moving, and how much noise you're making. That all comes together in the guard's perception, and you can see that on your HUD. And you could, like, the fact that they've added this back into the reboot is amazing. But at the same time, the way they went about it, giving guards like suspicion levels, like they go yellow and they go red to see you. I just think takes away from the experience quite a bit because, like, in the original Thief games, you could check how stealthy you were being with no one around, which doesn't really make a lot of sense considering stealth is based on the perception of the people that are looking for you. But at the same time, the idea was that it was a very consistent level. And although Thief's rebooted game, the AI doesn't seem inconsistent. It seems to be based around the idea of like, can you be stealthy at this point? And by the way, when you're out in the town, you can run at whatever speed you like and do whatever you like. It takes away from the role playing aspect, in my opinion. Whether or not that's important in any way, especially in modern games, I am not entirely sure. But I think that that was a very strange decision. Like, it felt like they were trying to modernize the mechanics when all they were doing was just changing them in a pretty arbitrary fashion.
Okay, fair enough. So, got anything more to say about Thief?
Not particularly. I think I covered it pretty well.
Yeah.
But with regards to Thief versus reboots, it's a very interesting one because I believe it always should have been rebooted, unlike a lot of other rebooted series. So I'm glad that they made it, but I feel that people's anticipation was a bit off the mark.
Okay, yeah. But yeah, as I said, my stand on reboots is, depends. Depends on the game in question, depends on how the devs pulled it off. But yeah,
Alright,
anything else you want to say?
about this? Okay,
No, I'm just
let's
in
go through
general.
some. Yeah. So let's go through some reboots that have come out. I'm on the Wikipedia article. Uh, where is it? Okay, Devil May Cry. Did that need rebooting? Considering that the first game came out in 2001, which wasn't even that long ago.
I don't even know if you can consider Devil May Cry as that much of a reboot, as just a prequel in the series.
If it's a prequel made significantly after the original series, it's pretty much a reboot, I'd say.
Okay, maybe. I don't know, I suppose. Um, okay, I've played DMC, Devil May Cry. Have you?
I have not.
I like the game.
All I know about it is that apparently it's significantly easier than the original Devil May Cry games.
Um, I haven't really played the original Devil May Cry. I think I played one of them. like more of like at a friend's house kind of thing. I never really played it much, but I'm not new to the Spectral Fighter series. I played God of War on PlayStation 2. I played
I'm playing God of War is a spectacle fighter, but anyway,
it is a spectacle fighter.
it's a power fantasy. But anyway, continue.
It's definitely a spectacle fighter. All right. Um, I played Darksiders, which was really good as well. Played a couple of other, but those are the two major ones that I can think of. DMC Devil May Cry. Um, Out of the three games mentioned there, I have to say the most difficult is. Oh, maybe it depends on the level of difficulty DMC is set to, but um, I played DMC on the medium difficulty, and I found it was pretty easy. Darksiders was about the same level of difficulty. I actually found God of War the most difficult. Maybe it's because I was a lot younger then, but I have to say, yeah, it's easy, but I can't really compare it to a previous DMC game. I can't really say, oh, it's so much easier than the previous ones because I haven't played them. Um, but as a newcomer to the series, I enjoyed it. I played it as more of like an action game, just hitting stuff with a little bit of challenge on the medium. I didn't really put it on the really difficult levels. I didn't really. That's not what I was looking for in the game. Well, I know a lot of people are. I wasn't, especially as a newcomer to the series. I've liked to play those games to see, the cool fighting moves. It's just as a bit of a change of pace from some of the other kind of games I play. I really like it. I think you should definitely play that with a controller. I don't even know if you can play that game with a keyboard, can you? I didn't even try. I was like, yeah, this looks like a game that goes with a
Yeah,
controller. I'm plugging that in.
pretty
Um,
much.
but yeah, I thought the mechanics were really cool. Like the two different weapons, and I don't use the controller much. I use it for very specific certain games. I'm not a console gamer at all, so I don't know. I found the way that it used the controller was really cool. Just maybe I'm just bad with controllers, but I really had to think about doing some of those combos and I had to keep looking at my controller. Am I hitting R2 correctly? Maybe I'm just not used to using that. I'm so much more fluent with a mouse and keyboard, but I found it challenging in that aspect. Right? I don't think you're meant to, but I did. I'm like an old man with a keyboard, but in this case, an old man with a controller
Mm. Mm.
without the old part. Um,
Okay,
so yeah, well,
that's
what do you
interesting
reckon?
because I would argue that it didn't need rebooting. By the time Devil May Cry 4 came out, the series was pretty done. So okay, it needed rebooting in the sense that they want to make more money out of it, but at the same time, like the Devil May Cry 4 came out recently enough and was quote unquote simplified enough or streamlined enough, depending on how you want to look at it, that felt like a really new game not when it came out, but like nowadays it will still feel like a pretty new game. Whereas DMC Devil May Cry was like it was the same game in essence, except with better graphics and slightly different controls, and it made it a little bit easier. Devil May Cry 4 was easy enough. So like as a the premise of a franchise, even Devil May Cry 1, 2001, will be the same game essentially, except you're beating up more puppets and fewer demons. You beat up more demons in later games, and that's about it. Like everything else is the same. So as a spectacle fighter, like they can change the fighting and stuff, and obviously that's why sequels exist. But rebooting it the way that they did, I don't see any point. Like it didn't need to happen at all because the series was very much out of steam
Okay,
as it
fair
was.
enough.
That
I
was my
suppose.
my argument for that. Same with. I'm not going to get into Turok Evolution because Turok Evolution was one of the worst games ever made for GameCube. So, like again, if we're looking at it situationally, then yeah, it's pretty hard to be objectively dismissive of reboots on the basis of games like that. The idea behind it though was amazing. So I think they just it needed to be rebooted, but they let it down quite a bit. Like that's the opposite of how I feel about Devil May Cry. Like the game DMC Devil May Cry was a reasonable game, but it didn't need to be made, so to speak.
Okay. Yep.
SimCity is another fantastic example of a game that needs to be
Never played a
rebooted, but the
Sims
way that
game.
they Okay, well, it needed to be rebooted because the original SimCity was really old, and SimCity 4, even as much as the fans of it love it, it's still dated. Like, there's still things you can add to that game because it's a simulation game. So, as technology improves and people get better and better ideas, it will always evolve as a genre. So, by all means, like, expand on it, give sequels, even reboot it if you really have to, EA. But the way that they went about it, obviously, you've heard about SimCity and the issues that that game had. So, the way they went about it was pretty shocking.
Mm.
The one that got it right, I'd say, is XCOM. The original XCOM is really old. Like, you can get it on DOS level of old. So that needs to be rebooted. The way they went about that was really, really good. Like, it was a really solid effort. And then the expansion for it also just, I think the expansion for it probably, apart from all the bugs, they didn't really fix all of them. It fixed a lot of the issues that a lot of people had, especially people who are fans of the original XCOM as well. So, like, I'm glad that one existed.
Mm.
That's about it for this list. Like, all the other ones are pretty much just pretty forgettable games, I reckon. Apart from Prince of Persia, I guess that should get a mention because the Prince of Persia reboot, the first
Ah,
one, not the later
Prince
one.
of Persia.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I have to talk about this. I definitely have to talk about this. I'm a huge fan of Prince of Persia. I have all the Prince of Persia games. I have the collection on PS2. And yeah,
But
I
not.
have I've played the original 2D side-scrolling thing one, and yeah, I played the reboot as well. And now my question is this: Ubisoft, where is my sequel? I loved that reboot. It was really good. Even though it had nothing to do with the original Sands of Time, I really liked that reboot. I think it was great. The art style, the general gameplay was nowhere near as good as the first one. I think it was still great, but Sands of Time and, Warrior Within and uh, Two Thrones outshines it in terms of gameplay. But just the art style, the story, the imagination that was put into that game was really good. It's high quality, something that you'd expect out of Ubisoft. And I really wanted the sequel. Like after that finish, I was like, why is there no sequel? It's awesome. And then a few years later, instead of releasing a sequel to that, they release another reboot. Like, what? You released a reboot 2 years ago, now you're releasing another reboot? Doesn't even make sense. And I played that, and it was such a disappointment. Like, it was a good game, but it was so disappointing. It wasn't even fun. I even forgot the name. It was forgettable. I don't even remember the characters. What was it? I'm gonna go look it in my Steam library. That
I
game,
believe it was just called Prince of Persia again. So
it was an utter disappointment.
yeah, it got a lot of hate if I remember correctly, which
Where
is
is
why they
it?
didn't make a sequel to it. So
Okay, no. Um, the reboot that I like was just called Prince of Persia. That was the one that was
we're
set.
talking about the 2008 game or the 2000 the
I'm talking about
PS2
the
era one,
cell
the Sands of
shaded
Time.
one. The cell shaded one is the one I liked.
Oh, okay.
I'm not talking about Sands of Time. Sands of Time isn't really a. Oh, I guess it's kind of a reboot.
It
Sands
was
of
it
Time.
was a reboot. Sands of Time was a
That was
reboot of
amazing.
the
That was
side-scrolling game.
ridiculously good. Sands of Time is the
Yeah,
best Prince of Persia game, hands down. Okay,
yeah.
so I'm talking after the Sands of Time series, after that trilogy on PS2. I'm talking about Prince of Persia 2008 that was cell shaded. I think that game was really good and it deserved a sequel. I don't know why it didn't get one. Um, the
It
one that I'm talking about that's
was
disappointing
pretty
was
unpopular, man.
I think it was in 2010. Yeah, I guess it had a kind of a cult following of like hardcore Prince of Persia fans, but I think it was a really good game. I liked it a lot. The game that disappoints me is Prince of Persia: The Forgotten Sands. I think that one came out 2 years after.
Ah, yeah, I see it. See it.
Oh my God, that game! I played it start to finish, and I didn't enjoy it at all. I don't know why it was even made. I, okay, that is a classic example of a bad reboot that's just trying to grab your money. That's what Forgotten Sands is. Okay? The Prince of Persia 2008 cel shaded one, that is not a good example of a bad reboot. That's an example of a good reboot. I think that game was good and it deserved a sequel, and I think they could have improved the game significantly on a sequel of that. I really liked it. I really liked the characters, I liked the story, I liked the artwork, the music. It was all good.
So, are you pumped for like 10 years down the track, the Assassin's Creed reboot?
Oh god. Don't
It's
even.
just going to be called
I
Assassin's
think
Creed, by the way.
I don't think there's going to be a reboot. The game's just going to continue on for the next 10 years. I mean, the Ubisoft
Actually,
developers
that's
stated
more likely.
themselves. This is a quote. They said, we can make up to 30 or more Assassin's Creed games. That's a quote from the developers. That's not me
They've
saying.
already made
They've made 8
5?
already. I
8.
have all of them.
Jesus.
And I don't. Oh, actually, I don't have the one on PS Vita. Or on, I think there was one on PSP as well. And the
Is
DS
that
ones.
right?
I have all the PC ones. I have all the PC games. I don't regret buying any of them. I think they're all really fun, really good. I have to say, actually, I completely forgot about this. The newest Assassin's Creed game, um, Black Flag. I haven't gotten to play it yet. I have it. Well, I have gotten to play it, but I immediately uninstalled it after playing it because it's terrible. It's unoptimized. I mean, I thought maybe my graphics card just wasn't good enough. Then I thought, hey, nah, I run Battlefield 4 at max graphics with 60 FPS. Surely I can run Black Flag on something higher than the very lowest setting. So I looked it up, and funnily enough, apparently the game is just terribly optimized on PC. It's a bad port. TB was also saying that even though he's running it on a Titan, it still has its frame rate issues and just does plonk and is generally unoptimized. A lot of the community is a bit annoyed. Um, but yeah, until they maybe release a patch that fixes that, it's going to remain uninstalled. But any in any event, I do plan on getting a new graphics card anyway within the next year or two. I'm in no rush to play the game anyway. I have like 200 other games in my Steam library that need playing. Um, but yeah, I don't have much to say on that other than that fact, which is annoying me. Tom.
Although, ignoring that, it seems like Black Flag has certainly revitalized the series. Like, the only things I heard about that game, at least the people that only ever reviewed on console, was that, yeah, like, being a pirate is pretty awesome. However, that doesn't imply to Ubisoft that they can make 30 games. It implies that once they get a theme, they have to go with it and then make a really good game about that, less so than the whole assassin business, because that gets pretty old pretty fast. Even when I was just playing Assassin's Creed 2, which is arguably one of the better ones in the series, I got bored by that mid-game, never mind, like mid-series, so that's definitely a factor. So as for Black Flag, like, the only reason it's so successful, I think, is because of the pirating, and Ubisoft have been quoted as saying they're not going to make one set in feudal Japan because ninjas is a bit low-hanging fruit. Well, you made a pirate game, Ubisoft, so with that in mind, you will make that ninja game eventually. Like, it's the most obvious one that they have to make. It's about assassins, for Christ's sake. So
Yeah,
where do they go
more
from
than
there? Like,
assassin.
they've had the
You
Middle East, they've had Italy, they've had pirates, they've had a very bizarre American War of Independence one, and then they're gonna have ninjas. I'm not sure where else they can like tie Assassin's Creed in. I can't think of other classical assassin-based time frames. You know?
Yeah, pretty much. Unless, I don't know, they do a slightly more modern one, the assassination of John F. Kennedy.
I was just thinking of that. Either John F. Kennedy or Abraham Lincoln. Like, in either of those situations. But, like, if you consider either of those situations, they have so much material to, like, explore these themes. It's amazing, right? In both those situations, you're looking at pretty racist reactionaries to political change. Like, just getting into their heads, if those are indeed your ancestors, as whichever character you're playing, please not Desmond Miles, anyone but him, that would be amazing. And it would draw so many, like, interesting questions about what sort of person you're playing as, what his motivations were. You can, like, how he not trained to do what he did, but like any amount of that, it would be pretty compelling, I reckon. But unfortunately, it's Ubisoft, and they're not exactly a hard hitting company, so I don't think it's ever going to happen.
Yeah, I suppose. Anyway, is there anything else you'd like to talk about in this episode, or I don't know. I think it might be time that we start wrapping this up.
Well, it has been over an hour
Yep.
when I thought we were going to be 20 minutes, so congratulations.
Congratulations on what?
Congratulations, it's been triple the length that I thought it would be.
Yeah, I suppose. But yeah, a name for the show. Have you thought of one in this time?
Of course it's not, are you kidding?
Helix Radio. No.
Oh, and this is the problem with pop culture references. But yeah,
Next week, Twitch plays Pokemon. A discussion.
that's not a bad idea. Although by next week, I think people might be a bit sick of it. They're already down to like 35k viewers, so see about that.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll come up with a topic by next week.
Mm. Anyway, and I guess that's it for today. Thanks for tuning in, viewers. All none of you.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. Uh, we need like a goodbye thing. Like you know how we have. You
Yeah, yeah.
know
Well,
how
you do
Toby
when you have
has
a name for the
his.
show.
You know how Toby has his, like his stuff, and then there's everyone has like their own like sort of ending. Man, I'm really tired. I should go to bed. Yeah, that's it. Go home, folks.